Welcome to our next video in our series of diabetes awareness sessions. Today we're going to look at the Eat Well Guide and its application to diabetes. So this might be a model that you have seen before. If not, this is a model that is a public health illustration of what the population as a whole require to gain all their vitamins and minerals and essential nutrients that we need to stay fit and healthy. But what we're going to look at is how we can apply this to helping you to manage your diabetes. So first of all, we'll have a look at the starchy food. So these are your potatoes, bread, pasta and rice. And if you remember in the previous film, we mentioned these are the foods that give us our starchy carbohydrates. So we talked about bread, rice, cereals, potatoes. These all break down into glucose and provide quite a substantial amount of the carbohydrate in our diet. We've then got our fruit and vegetables section, and we all know that we've been recommended to eat 5 a day to get our vitamins and minerals. But again, if you remember, we talked about the naturally occurring carbohydrates that occur in fruit, such as fructose. So our bananas, apples, pears, grapes, and all our other fruits all contain fructose. However, when we're looking at vegetables, these often contain an awful lot less of naturally occurring sugar and carbohydrate than the fruit. So keep that in mind, that out of the 5 portions, you may well choose to have 2 or 3 from fruit and an awful lot more from vegetables, as the carbohydrate content is much lower in vegetables than it is in fruit. Then we've got our protein foods. So these help our body to repair, and these will include foods like beans, pulses, fish, eggs and meats, and other alternatives, for example things like tofu and soya. Now, if these are in their natural form and haven't been processed, such as meat and fish, these don't contain any carbohydrate at all. Whereas your vegetable sources such as beans will have some carbohydrate, but they are the whole grain, high fibre, types of carbohydrate, so we're getting lots of other fibre and the benefit from that. Then we've got our dairy section, so this is things like milk, yoghurt and cheese. And again, if you remember, we spoke about some of the dairy foods contain another form of natural carbohydrate, which would be lactose, that you will find in milk and yogurts. Then one of the smaller sections is your fats and oils. Again, these don't contain any carbohydrate, but we might have things like olive oil, rapeseed oil, or some of the margarines whilst you're doing your cooking or preparing your meals. However, these don't provide any carbohydrate to your intake, but they do add obviously fat and calories. And then the final section is our food with added sugar and added fat. Now, these are the section that don't provide us with any essential nutrients, but they do provide us with potentially quite a large amount of carbohydrate. So again, if you think back to those 3 categories of carbohydrate, we've got starch, we've got naturally occurring, and then we've got food with added sugars. So that is like your cakes, biscuits, sweets and chocolates, as we've got illustrated here. Increasing our carbohydrate awareness is one of the key learning outcomes that we can have from these videos for you that will help you to manage your diabetes more effectively. We've talked a lot now throughout the films of how the total carbohydrate intake is one of the key factors that allows you to moderate and control and help manage your blood glucose levels. So we want to have a look at some practical elements for you. So this might just be somebody's typical day. So let's have a look through what we've got. So we've got maybe a cereal such as cornflakes and toast for breakfast with some milk and orange juice. And then this will come to approximately 70 grams of carbohydrate in that meal. Then maybe you might have a couple of biscuits with a cup of tea, so we've got another 20 grams. Then how about a ham sandwich for lunch with a packet of crisps and a small cake? So this is going to add another 65 grams of carbohydrate into our day. We've had a banana mid-afternoon, and then our evening meal is pizza and chips with apple pie and ice cream. Now the pizza and chips, quite carbohydrate heavy, so this is going to be approximately 90 grams, and then another 65 grams in the evening. So the total up, and if we put some milk within our drinks as well, is going to be about an approximately 325 grams in a day. Now, we mentioned earlier that a moderate intake with a higher end of about 230 grams of carbohydrate a day can help you manage diabetes. So what do we think? This is quite a high intake at 325. Also, we have talked about the Eat Well guide and trying to link that with our overall health and reducing your risk of other conditions. So, have we got any fruit and vegetables? Well, we've only got one portion, haven't we, which is our banana. So we're nowhere near our 5 portions a day. So the quality of it is not awfully great and doesn't meet those healthy eating guidelines of 5 a day. And also, what's our fibre intake like? Again, maybe we've had brown bread, but actually that's probably one of the only fibre sources we've got. So let's have a think. We've got 325 grams of carbohydrate, very little fruit and vegetables, and very little fibre. So we're not really meeting all those healthy eating guidelines, and it's probably not helping our diabetes control. Here's our second example. So we've made some small alterations, because if you think back, our other meal was high in carbohydrate and it wasn't very well balanced compared with our Eat Well guide. So let's have a look what we've done here to improve the fibre and the fruit and vegetable content. So we swapped our cereals for wheat biscuits, so we've increased our fibre and we've included a piece of fruit. And then if you remember, we had biscuits mid-morning and we've swapped those for nuts and an apple. These have very little carbohydrate in them, so whereas the biscuits would have given us 20 to 30 grams of carbohydrate, an apple and nuts would give us 15. And then rather than a ham sandwich, we've got a ham salad with pita bread and we've put a yoghurt in, so we've included one of our 5 a day from the vegetable section, and we've reduced the carbohydrate from the bread roll down to the pita. So that now contains 45 grams of carbohydrate as a meal compared with the 65 grams when it was the sandwich. We've put a scone in for a mid-afternoon snack, that's about 35 grams of carbohydrate. And then rather than the pizza and chips, that was a very high carbohydrate meal, we've now got 2 of our portions of vegetables and we've got some fish as well for the protein. We've got our meringue with some fruit and cream on, and then we have got cheese and crackers. So let's have a think again from that Eat Well guide and the balance. We've now got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 portions of fruit and veg. We've got 2 of our dairy and we've managed to save 100 grams of carbohydrate overall. So overall, this is now about approximately 225 grams compared with our previous example, which was 325. So it's 100 grams less. Now, if you'd like to lower it even further and have another go, and maybe your blood glucose levels are still not quite where you'd want them to be, maybe there's a few more tweaks we can make that will help to improve the balance again, but also to lower the carbohydrate. So let's have a think. We've got the pita bread with our salad. If we actually swap the pita bread for 2 Ryvitas, 1 pita bread is 30 grams of carbohydrate, whereas 2 Ryvitas are 15. So we've reduced it a little bit there. And then, do we need the bread with our evening meal? We could replace that with the broccoli. And then, do we really need the scone? We could swap and have the apple. And you may want to find that you don't need the bedtime snack, so we don't need the crackers and cheese. Now, one of the things that I just wanted to illustrate is the kind of tool that Mel mentioned in one of our other videos about the tea plate. And this is a really good visual guide just to illustrate what you might want your plate to look like. So if you think now, we've got half the plate covered in vegetables, a quarter is carbohydrate and a quarter is protein. Whereas previously when we had the bread on, this would be more like half of your plate is from carbohydrate and only a quarter is vegetables. So just to show you again, half the plate from vegetables and a quarter from carbohydrate. That might be pasta or rice as an alternative. So that's a really easy thing to remember. Think of the tea plate, half of your plate from vegetables, a quarter is carbohydrate and a quarter is protein. And we've fitted all those needs and requirements. We've got lots of vegetables, and actually now this day's intake we've saved another 75 grams of carbohydrate, and we're at approximately 150 grams in a total day.